Hi and welcome to this next episode of our Airpitch Action, the 3v3 podcast. Today, so proud. We've got him on board as a UK ambassador. Welcome to the team, Pete Sturgess. Welcome to our team as part of 3v3 UK. This is our second podcast. We've actually recorded one a few years back. So it'll be good to compare, what we've done in that time, really. So quick introduction, Pete. I know a lot of people will know who you are, but if for those who don't, want to give a quick background on what you've done?
Yeah, I joined the FA just over 17 years ago. I did 3 years as a regional coach for Yorkshire. And then for the last 14, I was the national lead for the foundation phase. That allowed me to be really instrumental in devising and communicating out to all levels of the game, the England DNA. And it's what I've been really proud of. And a lot of that work is about developing individual skill, making sure our youngest children get the best possible start. And so it was just the best job I've ever had. And I've walked away, but I'm still hoping that with the role that I've now got with 3v3 UK and the 3v3 game and smaller formats in general, we can still make a massive impact upon how our young players are developed.
So rolling back the years then, so obviously you probably were involved in the introduction of mini soccer, with that where kids were going from 11-a-side down to 5-a-side. So what was the feedback originally from around that?
I think the feedback is pretty much like every other country in the world that's tried to introduce smaller formats, in that there's a massive pushback. There certainly was in this country, and it was really tough to get the agreement to go down to 5v5. And I think 10 years on, it now needs, there's another huge review taking place. And I think if we're brave enough, we could move to slightly smaller formats, for all the benefits that obviously we're going to speak about as we go through this podcast. But there was a lot of opposition, and most of it was around the administration and would we have enough pitches? Would we have enough officials? Would we have enough goals? And would we need different markings? None of it really, Mike, was centered around player development. And if somebody had said and come back to me and said, we've got really good reasons regarding player development where this won't work, I would have been really interested in hearing that. But there was no feedback of that nature at all. And so once we got over the administrative issues and people settled down and saw that it could work, then it became, the format that our players go to at those youngest age groups. But I think there's still room for change.
So obviously we've now seen that full cycle then of the players who started, 10, 12 years ago at 5v5, who are now hitting the national team. So we've seen it come full circle almost then. And obviously it's plain to see. I don't think we need to discuss it in much detail. The technical ability we've got of the players, that Gareth now got at his disposal compared to, 15, 20 years ago. And I know the Premier League was a big part of that and the influence of foreign players. But obviously, that DNA that was started by creating these technical players at a younger age. I say we're seeing full benefit of it now. And then, like you say, we're looking to go a bit further now, and how can we improve it? And is that, we're looking, to reinvent the wheel just because someone needs something to do, or is the real reason why we should also look at these other formats and other ways and that we can make plays even better?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Mike, and we obviously want our young play, well, all of our players to be as skillful as possible, partly because of how closely that's linked to their levels of participation. And if you feel as though you're getting better, you're becoming good at that sport that you've chosen, the chances are that you're going to stay playing with that for longer and longer. And obviously, all the health benefits, all the social benefits that that brings, that's a really important factor. So it's not just that we want the best players playing in the Premier League or for, for the England team. It's got those wider social benefits as well. And if we look back over the last 10 years, the introduction of the DNA was really important and pivotal, but it wasn't on its own. I think what's happened in our professional academies, the academy system is now much more robust and much more expert in developing young players and understanding young players and how best to get the best out of them. So I think a lot of things have happened. The FA's strategy over the last 4 years has been really focused on developing more skillful players. So it's almost like a number of planets have aligned. And what's happened is that when all that's gone into the melting pot, what's popping out are some highly technical, highly skillful players that are now playing at the highest level. And Gareth is now, the beneficiary of that. In fact, I think his biggest issue at the moment is choosing his best team, because we've never really had this before. We had a golden generation in the past with Steve Gerrard and Paul Scholes and players like that. But I think the players that are emerging now are holistically so well prepared for the pressures and the expectations of playing at the highest level, and hopefully for us winning, those top level tournaments and competitions.
Well, and then bring it down a level. Obviously, we do a lot with grassroots, and we don't expect most of these players to ever get anywhere near the professional game. It's my biggest focus is always keeping kids to stay in love with the game. So whatever level they play at, and whether they want to be coaches or parents in the future of their kids then playing, it's keeping that love of the ball, love of the game. So that small-sided game, focusing on that group of players. And you mentioned before then about just the physical activity then that players get. Yeah, do you want to, just a bit of benefits of what we see in that, not just at the top end, it's like the bigger bottom end.
Yeah, and I think there's two things at play here, Mike. You've got we now know a lot more about the benefits of smaller formats than we did 10 years ago. There's a lot more research. It has been the topic of lots and lots of academic investigation. So we now know in more detail the returns from smaller sided games. And it's almost, the evidence is there that the benefits for our young players are so clear to see. So we have to make sure that that's part of the offer that we have and the diet that we present to our children. What we've also discovered is that a mixed game format actually brings you even more returns. So instead of just saying that your diet is solely 11v11, which it was 10 plus years ago, this move to smaller formats, if we went even smaller and we included more format types within the diet that our young children get, we're going to get even more returns, because each format and each number on the pitch and each constraint and each pitch size will give the children different challenge. And so that we're going to reap so many more rewards if we get away from match day looking like one game at the weekend with a set number of players playing, and if probably as many watching from the sidelines, and everything depends upon that one fixture. I think it would be a really forward-thinking step if we had multiple formats making up the season, and match day becoming more of a festival and a celebration of children playing different formats, but playing multiple games. Because the one thing we must be able to guarantee our youngest children is that if they want to play, they can go and find a game or find a match or find somewhere where they can play. We really have to focus upon that. So that's the one thing. The second thing from what you said, Mike, is, and if I can relate this specifically to the 3v3 that I've seen over the years, it's very much like free play in the street. There's very little coaching. The kids are free to express themselves. There's nobody saying, don't try that, pass the ball here. The kids are being exposed to being instinctive, reacting to events as they unfold in front of them. And that's where creativity and problem solving really does start. So I think 3v3 has a massive place to play in having a variety of formats, but also it's linked to free play and all of the benefits that are going to come from that.
That was, and it's one of our taglines that what we use, and people say, what is 3v3? And they always say it's where football, futsal, and street football come together. And part of that then is environment. And we do a lot of like just play sessions where the kids just turn up on their own and we play games. And that might be against players who are younger than them, players who are older than them, players who are better than them, different abilities. And then we mix it up so it's not the same all the time. But having that variety of like I say, of environment that we can create as adults is a big thing that I always, say, well, this is our job. But then let's say having different formats of games. And I just want to share something here now with everyone, just as we're talking about this. So this is our future. So we've been doing 3v3 on the air pitches now for several years. We've now got bigger pitches, different size pitches, and this is what our events over the summer will look like, where it's a combination of 3v3 on the pitches on the left. We've got bigger pitches, 4v4, we play Fanino. We know like the German market and the German FA, that's a game that they play, and we'll talk about that more. We've got our 1v1 beehive, which is just, constantly, engaging them for players. Bigger 5v5 pitches, on there as well. So, in a day or in a session, the kids will play, multiple formats. And that's my dream. Yeah, what I'm looking at there is my dream, and we're going to make it happen then this summer of these different games, and that teams are going to play, or players are going to play.
Mike, I really do think that this is a step. It's a really forward-thinking step, and I think it's going to really inject some massive enjoyment, first of all, into the lives of our young children, because I would imagine that on an event like this, if you want to play, you can go and play. There's no subs, there's no real waiting to get on, or you might get on for the last 2 minutes in this game. I think that has to be the starting point. If you want to play, we'll find you a game, and it could be a 5v5, a 3v3, or whatever format it is, but we will find you a place to play. And I think that sends out a really strong message to the people organising the small-sided games for our youngest children, that this kind of format, because it will be competitive, Mike, and I think the research that I've done around other countries is that they still want that competitive nature, because that's where you breed that kind of intensity and those winners. But it also gives you an opportunity to help players deal with winning, losing, playing well, not playing well, and to role model how to be really sporting and respectful, regardless of the result. So this for me is a massive step forward.
I'm just adding up here now on that setup there, how many players could be active. So, like I said before, when you said some of the objections was, we've not got enough space, for these smaller games, there's actually 76 players, that'll be active on that pitch.
Yeah.
When again, if you split that into a normal 5v5, there'd be what, 10, 20, there'd be 40. So we're almost doubling the amount of players that we can get on the pitch. We've done some events
Yeah.
with 22 air pitches on the 3v3 sides on one full-size pitch. So we had, there's over 400 players there, and they were constantly on off, for a couple of hours. So maximising that game time and that enjoyment, then that's always, I say, a big thing for us. So yeah, they're our future. So we look at, like, say, different formats and different challenges. Obviously, I know you've worked around and dealt with other countries and that are probably ahead of us on offering this, or it's been part of their DNA. So I don't know if you give a couple of examples of different countries and what they do.
Yeah, I think certainly Brazil has got futsal, and it's also got a society where pickup games are still a really strong influence upon their youngest children. So that combination of being able to play competitively and at their top football clubs, both 11v11 or 9v9 and futsal, during a training week, I think is a massive boost to the type of player that Brazil is still able to produce. So the administrators actually work things out so that kids can train and play both football and futsal, and take part in competitive games at the weekend, right up till the players are 15, 16 years of age, where either the player chooses or has a choice, the coaches choose, or there's a negotiation between them as to which pathway they should then concentrate upon. So you've got this real mix of small-sided futsal, fast-moving, really coordinated movements and technical actions, combined with what we all want, our young players to enjoy as well, because the 11v11 game is not the enemy here. It's not being vilified. What we're saying is there's a place for it, but in the development of our young players towards it, we have to offer more variety. And Brazil have got that with their mix of football and futsal. In Argentina, it's slightly different. They've got baby football, futsal, and 11v11 football.
So just on that word there, if we called football here baby football, you'd think people go, oh, I'm not doing that.
Absolutely.
I'm not a baby. Even, a 6-year-old kid will say, I'm not a baby.
Yeah.
So it's, what words can we use that, it's almost, you're still connected, but it is a different game.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, there's lots of videos on YouTube where if you Google baby football in Argentina, you will see that it's nothing to do with, babying our youngest players. It's actually a bit of a bear pit. So it can be played outside with slightly larger numbers, and it can be played inside with either 6-a-side or 5-a-side. And it's a really competitive arena, but there's no nastiness. There is a real desire to want to win and to compete and do your best. But the whole environment is one of, once the game is over, it's different neighborhoods will play different neighborhoods, and there's a real rivalry, but it's not nasty. So I think if players experience the three formats, baby football, futsal, and 11-a-side football, and each competitive arena is slightly different. Again, the players are getting a varied diet where they're getting a little bit something a little bit different from each format. And so when they come on to choose wherever they want to specialize, they are so much better prepared. Germany's doing the same. And it was interesting, the graphic you showed, Mike, with all the pitches on there. A lot of the German model is based around having 7 rounds of competition on a match day rather than just one. So they've allowed their different districts to organize match days that can have up to 7 rounds of games each being a maximum of 10 minutes. So you could play 3 rounds, 4 rounds. The maximum is 7 rounds, but the kids are getting 70 minutes of high intensity football where there's very few substitutes. And if there are, when a goal is scored, players are changed so that you're only off for a very short time. So players are constantly on and off. It's almost a little bit futsal-ing in having rolling substitutions. They also play to 4 goals, not 2. And yet in some of the formats where there's slightly larger numbers, they will go down to 2 goals. So they're already exploring the benefits that are going to come from having a really varied diet of different formats, different rules and conditions. But the golden thread that runs through the whole lot is that it's fun, it's enjoyable, but it's still competitive.
And that's, like I say, the administrators then, like I say, it's like a dirty word then of this extra thing that they've got to organise. But it's mad because all this stuff now can happen in England. We don't have a rule where you have to play this format at this age. Probably the only restriction and probably something, what you mentioned there, like kids in Germany can play 70 minutes. The kids here can only play 40, going off FA rules. So yeah, where was that come from? But having these, I say, different environments for the kids to play, not just making skillful players, but that, say, social corner and all the benefits they're going to get from that then as well growing up. The physical side of it as well. Let's say the intensity of these smaller games. I know on the future of the youth football projects that we've been involved in, that was one of the markers that we're looking at then, is what physical activity these players were doing. Because, the ones at the top are always going to be doing lots of activity. It's the group at the bottom that, we've got an obesity problem in this country now and in many other countries around the world. How can we get them kids off the sofa, down to playing football or another sport? Yeah, they might fall in love with something else, but getting them out and active and enjoying it, so they're going to want to come back the week after. And I think that's a challenge.
I think giving our children the confidence to be physically literate is one of the most important things we could ever give, our children as they're growing up. And then they can decide whether they apply that to football, to tennis, to athletics. But what we've done, during their formative years, we've given them the opportunity to develop their physicality, their physical literacy, so that whatever they try, they're going to be more confident. And if you are more confident in what you do, I said right at the beginning, you're more likely to continue in some way, either in that sport or just being more physically active. And this is where it starts. And I think the physical literacy, if you watch the kids playing 3v3, Mike, there is contact. So we're developing that core strength. There is so many changes of speed and direction. And then that's without all the technical actions on the ball. So I think it's a real cauldron for developing all of the things that we want our young players to be good at and to develop over the years.
No, bro. And there's a myth, and I was listening to a really good podcast over this weekend where Paul Merson was on it and Jamie Redknapp, and they were talking, about them as a parent and them looking back when they were kids and that love of the game and love of the ball and wanting to learn and different skills. And I think we mix this word skills up and technical ability with, doing tricks. And people think, because they see it on YouTube and they watch little videos and it's everyone doing tricks and flicks. And in the small-sided games, and people go, well, that's all you're teaching them, I've had it in the past with futsal, that you're teaching them tricks and flicks. And it's like, no, we're teaching them to be comfortable with the ball. That's the first stage. And then after that, you'll see all the other benefits regarding decision-making, because the first touch is better. The first pass is better. There's all building blocks, aren't there? So that myth of making more skillful players, as if we're going to be creating, 100 Neymars on the team. It's like we want players to have like this technical ability, So, taking that away, what other benefits, let's say, the attributes and what you'll see players gain from small-sided games?
Yeah, I've been reading a lot, Mike, about the development of executive functioning skills. And your executive functions are really that front part of your brain that helps you with problem solving, predicting, noticing patterns or sequences and consequences. And it really is the basis of your decision making and your problem solving. And what you described earlier about kids of different ages playing together, different abilities playing together, what you're doing is saying to the players, there are so many problems to solve here. We're just creating a space where you can do it, and it's a safe space. So I think that holistic development, and particularly the cognitive development that can come from players playing 3v3, for me is off the scale. And it's one of the biggest things that we need to communicate out to to as many people as possible, that this is not just about, doing, I don't know, 100 kick-ups. It's actually about working out the problems that are posed to you in a tight area against different opponents at different speeds. And I think that's perfect preparation, whether you go on to play football or any other sport.
No, and it is that them like sporting attributes. You always see the kid who's good at football. Oh, he also wins the athletics. He also plays cricket, and you go, yeah, it's just all them ABCs and that he builds up. I remember a tennis player coming to play with us, and his movement was his balance was just unbelievable. He never kicked a ball, but
Yeah,
he took to it like a duck to water. It was so simple. Um,
yeah,
and I think that is part of it. Obviously, this country, we love football. It's a passion for everyone. And we probably, we force it on our children. You go and play football because I played football and that's what we do. But yeah, and well, then go and do other sports. And obviously, there's other issues with costs and availability, etc. But yeah, how can us as administrators then of the game, how can we, take that ball off players and make them become sporting and give them opportunity? And could, as administrators, could we do that? Just a quick story. After the Super Bowl the other night, when we were training this Monday, there was some American footballs lying around. So I just threw them on the pitch and left them. And some kids didn't bother. They went straight for the footballs. And there was two. And honestly, if I'd let them play American football all night, they would have done.
yeah,
And they wanted to do it. And I actually said to them, come up with a game that, I can see you do, not just standing there throwing the ball at each other. Come up with something that we can do and we'll carry on doing it,
yeah,
and letting them play. And you never know, they might go on and say, I don't like football anymore, I'm going to play this, and, and swap sports. So yeah, it's different, isn't it, for every child, I'd say.
yeah. But you've just raised a really important point, Mike, and I'm glad you have, because I almost missed it. This thing about giving some kind of ownership and choice to the children about, what can this game look like? I think if we want kids to participate and enjoy it more, we've got to include them in the process. And it's not, handing the keys over to the children. We are providing a really safe space. And it's great when we can give children the autonomy to say, well, what do you want to do in this space and what can it look like? So I think that's where that holistic development really begins to kick in, and that the children feel part of what we're trying to do. And if you feel part of something, it's a really powerful instinct to want to carry on doing it for as long as possible.
Yeah, no, I think, there's opportunities now in this country, and just thinking there of like the girls who, again, you probably say 10, 15 years ago, there was opportunities in other sports more, whereas now there's loads in football. And same, I've just spent a lot of time over in the USA, where again, soccer was a girls' game predominantly there now, and the switch has now come. More boys are now playing it, as well. partly because of issues within other sports regarding head injuries,
Yeah.
and this is like an easier option for getting the kids active. So different all these other countries. Obviously, we were talking about Germany there as well, and obviously so they've gone with the 4-goal Fanino game. So in comparison to the 2-goal version, like what different benefits can you see in there?
Well, they wanted to give the children an opportunity to just score more goals. And also, if you've got two targets to go at, your head moves in a slightly different way. You're checking two things rather than one. So if you're trying to introduce that notion of scanning or, paying attention to more things, and it's only paying attention instead of from one thing to two things. So it's very age appropriate. It's a really nice way to begin to introduce it. But they also have small number formats where there is just 2 goals. So they're really like interrogating the benefits that can come from this mixed diet. And they're doing it because the one thing that they found that they didn't produce enough of was the kind of game-changing, highly technical, highly skillful dribbler, creative player that they want, obviously, in their national teams. They produce a lot of high-quality players, but they're players who might be a little bit more comfortable with tactics and team shapes and strategies, but they haven't got that one game-changing player. And obviously this is designed for them to produce, lots of them. So they've taken a very bold step, and I think they've done it in a timescale that's quite quick because they've realized that this needs to be implemented now. But they've also embraced futsal really, really quickly. In fact, the German national team beat Spain, who are, one of the top nations for futsal, recently. And so I think the Germans, if they know and they've done the research that these are the returns that are going to come if we do this, they're very quick and more agile in being able to do it. So I think they have to be commended. And we think we're making ground, but every other country is still advancing. So we've just got to get better at a faster rate. And I see what we've spoken about in this podcast as a real integral part of that happening.
Brilliant. So obviously, if people want to, find out more about this, what resources are out there, what's something. I know we've got a book which I'll put the link to on this, what people can download for free. But where else could, I'm a brand new coach. I love what I'm hearing on this. How do we get involved? Where do we get the skills from?
I think the first thing is to look at where the 3v3 is taking place. Because if I was a coach starting out on my journey and I was really interested in these smaller formats, the first thing I would do is go and check it out and just see for myself what the returns are. So if there is somewhere that we can share all of the activity that you're involved in, Mike, with the Premier League tournaments, all your work with the pro clubs and also in grassroots, I think that would be a great starting point.
Yeah, no, we'll link our website with all our licensed areas and that we've got. But yeah, I know there's a resource online. There's some books out there that are 3v3 specific. We'll plug your book while we're here. That's the futsal book. I'll link it to that then as well. But there's places out there, England Learning, the Boot Room,
Yeah.
etc. There's stuff like that. So we'll throw up a few links to this where people can get info from.
I think the resources on England Education or England Learning is there's a real focus on 2v2 and small number combinations, both as 2v2s, 2v1s, 3v2s. So there's a lot of resources being built up there and being shared with the grassroots community through England Education. So that would be another really good place to go and start your search.
I think there's the topic of our next podcast. Then is going through each of these formats and also listing out. Then if this is what your outcome, this is probably a good format to try, or this one might be better.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
And we can,
whole new topic.
yeah. We can also talk about what we did at the CPD event, Mike, and just how we added a little bit of structure with some games that complemented the free play that was already going on. So in trying to squeeze out even more by posing particular challenges by certain constraints and having certain numbers on the air pitch, we can increase the challenge, and that can be individualized or it can be for all players to experience. So we're getting a real balance between free play, but some quite specific challenges if the players need that kind of approach.
No, and that's on the sessions we offer. You know, that's they're called Just Play with some of them, where it's just turn up and play. And then we have some Airpitch Academy games where it's a bit more structured, a bit of coaching, different variations of game, let's say different constraints and that we put on. So the kids are getting try to give them that balance throughout the week, so it's not the same, same challenge all the time, which we speak about a lot. So Peter, I'm going to bring this to an end now because I appreciate your time. But yeah, we'll discuss another one where we go through the different formats. Last question. I always ask this everyone, and I don't know if you asked it years ago, so we'll see again. And I'll check, see if you've changed your mind. Your all-time team. You got to pick a team. Anyone in the world, present or past. Who's your 3v3 team you're having?
Who would I have in my 3v3 team?
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to have Lionel Messi because he's just made for it. I just think his creativity. He would be my Argentinian one, my Brazilian one, because I think they would really work well in a 3v3. Would be Zico. And
Showing your age here now.
Yeah, sure. I've got to put an English player in there. So at the moment, yeah, I'd have to put Phil Foden in there, and I think those three would be unbeatable and unplayable.
What a team! Right, we'll see. It's mad. I'm a Man United fan, so for me sins sometimes, but my favourite player at the moment is Phil Foden. So I have to keep watching Man City just to watch him. But yeah, he's a player then that has got the world at his feet and bring it on for the summer in the Euros and beyond. So Pete, again, thanks for your time. We'll see you at our next CPD event. Like I say, we're going to run. We did one last week. We're going to run these around the country now. So yeah, hopefully we'll see you on one very, very soon. So coming to an area near you if you're watching this. Thanks everyone for listening. Appreciate your time. Any questions, just drop us an email or a message on social media. Cheers now.
Thanks, Mike. I've loved it.